What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us for this Mograph Live special on a Thursday night. See who shows up here. Everybody's eating dinner and stuff. What up, Dodd? How you doing there? What up, Jeremy? Jeremy, I can't play Halo. What are you talking about? After this, we'll do.
Which Halo you guys playing?
Oh, Halo 5.
Or do you play?
Yeah.
5?
Mm-hmm. We got quite a team going with Ariev and Matt and Cam, Jeremy, Brandon, our friend Steven. It's just, we have a whole little group chat on our text called Halo Kitty, and we all hit each other up all the time. We're like, Halo? Anyone? Halo?
Nice.
Got Stellar.
Are you guys
here.
still streaming the Halo?
You know, we got all our equipment to do that. We haven't done it yet. It's just been with my move and everything. We should do that pretty soon. See, Feeding Wolves. Logan is here. What up, Logan? Brandon. There's see half the Halo team is here already.
Some good people. Say, me and my friend John's, we just been playing through the Master Chief Collection. Like, we were trying to gear up for Halo Infinite, so we started at Halo 1, the Anniversary Edition, and then right now we just beat Halo 4 the other night. So
nice.
He's trying to cap it off on Halo Reach, just to kind of play it in the order that they came out. But yeah, the news dropped about Halo Infinite, so yeah, kind of taking our time going through it now. But
I love it.
We're trying to time it out for the lead up just to hit when Halo Infinite came out.
Well, if you ever want to join us on 5, just let me know. We're playing like all the time, so
yeah.
So everybody, thanks for joining us. This is the Creating the Unreal live special. Looks like everybody is filing in here, so make sure you get your questions ready. We'll be hitting those up in a little bit. If you want to email us anything after the fact or anything, our email address is always open, info@mograph.com. If you want to send any questions our way for the podcast, for any of the live specials, for any of the guests, just let us know. Today we got Jonathan Winbush of Winbush Immersive here, and Benji Theme from Capacity. And most of you already know Jonathan Winbush, and of course we're here for his new course. And Benji has been doing Unreal stuff as the co-creative director at Capacity, and so we're going to talk some Unreal stuff. So you just been thinking about your questions. And first off, of course, we're going to talk about the fact that the course is finally out. We're going to talk about it a little bit. And I do have some video that we can play here as well. So this launched, what day was that? We soft launched on Sunday
night.
Yeah, Sunday night. And which was awesome because I think, who was it? Logan actually purchased it when it was soft launched before we even said anything yet. We're like, man, people just sitting there refreshing the page. That's awesome. Just waiting for it.
Yeah, he hit me up. He's like, dude, I'm on chapter 3. I'm like, it came out already?
Yeah. That was great.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I think I had like a couple chapters at the end that I was like changing some verbiage and stuff like that on. So that was nice. So, there's questions coming in already. Okay, I'll keep track of all these. We'll come back to them. First thing that we'll do, though, is we'll show a little preview of the course with our trailer here.
What up? Winbush here, and today I'm excited to tell you guys about my brand new course coming to Mograph.com, Creating the Unreal, a motion graphics guide to Unreal Engine. I'm going to show you guys how you can integrate Cinema 4D so you'll be crazy comfortable in no time. So we're going to start by exploring the marketplace, and then from there I'm going to show you guys how to set up a scene. We're going to get familiar with the content browser, the viewports, how to set up the sequencer for the timeline, and then from there we're going to get into lighting, texturing, rendering. I'm going to show you how you can integrate Quixel Bridge with Unreal so you have access to that full library of surfaces, of 3D models, and everything else that they have on there. And so if this sparks your interest even a little bit, then this course is just for you. So go to mograph.com, click on classes to sign up, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Let's create the Unreal together.
All right. I'm excited. And the other thing that I wanted to show as well as people who are interested in finding out a little bit more about your workflow and how you work and how this could be helpful to them, especially as Cinema 4D artists, is you've got a tutorial. It's actually one of the chapters from the class that's out, and it's the FBX Mixamo workflow. And I've got a little promo we could show on that too. And it's of course it's older, so it says, coming soon, but it's actually out. So I'll show this one right here now as well here.
My name's Joel Deadmau5. I've been following Jonathan Wimbush for quite some time.
Little plug for my friend Wimbush.
Hey, this is Dave from Mograph.com inviting you to check out a new free Cinema 4D Unreal tutorial from Jonathan Wimbush. He's taking the Unreal world by storm, and you can't help but say, what up, what up?
What up, Wimbush here.
What up, Wimbush here. And today I'm excited to give you a teaser of my course Creating the Unreal exclusively on Mograph.com.
In this full sample lesson from his upcoming course, Wimbush will show you how to bring FBX animations and Mixamo data from Cinema 4D into Unreal Engine.
Cinema 4D and Epic, John Wimbush.
If you like that lesson, sign up for notifications on when his course becomes available, and head over to Wimbush's YouTube page for more Unreal goodness.
Definitely check out Jonathan Wimbush on YouTube.
Cinema 4D and Unreal. Let's go!
Make sure you go to Mograph.com. I'll check you there. Take care.
Wimbush.
So you've got some extra stuff as well. Like if people go to your YouTube channel, you've been doing the like some tutorials on logos as well, like doing like a series with the Unreal logo. And I know one of those is available. You can actually download the project files, but if you want to download all the project files from all the different logos, it's actually a bonus end chapter in the class. So first thing we're going to do is kind of go through the class itself, and then we'll go through some of the questions if we have some, and we'll talk about Unreal a little bit more. If anybody wants to check out that free tutorial lesson, though, you can check that out at mograph.com/tutorials. You can go through the whole thing there, goes through the whole lesson, so you learn about how to bring in that FBX data. And it doesn't just apply to Cinema 4D. A lot of these things apply to anything that would use FBX or that kind of data. So a lot of people ask, oh, well, do I have to have Cinema 4D to take this course? Well, not necessarily. It's a good introduction. You are going to be a little bit lost when you're in Blender and it's in the Cinema 4D chapters, but you aren't in Cinema 4D that much. I mean, you're in it, and there are chapters in it and talking about the workflow, but it really applies to anything. It could apply to Maya. It could apply to 3D Max. It could apply to a Blender or whatever. So it's definitely something that'll be valuable, even if you don't necessarily have Cinema 4D. So I'm just going to go through the list here of what you talked about in the course, because it'd be nice to talk about that a little bit in general. Are you glad that the course is done and all set and out there?
Yeah, I became a victim of the COVID circumstances. Like, I know we announced it at NAB, and people have been hitting me up ever since then. Like, when's it coming? When's it coming? So it's like, COVID hit and the schools started closing. So I'm a family man myself. I have a wife and kids. So
Yeah.
it just slowed the process down because everybody's here. But, I'm glad that it's finally out and it's getting such a good response. So I'm definitely appreciative to everybody that's been picking it up and even showing me the work that they've been doing on like Instagram and Twitter. I mean, it's cool just seeing how people are like, hey, this isn't as intimidating as I thought it was. And they're like making renders like really fast. So, I mean, it's exciting to see how quick people are picking it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw the one story. I think I what do you call it? Regrammed the story today. I don't know what you call it. Yeah,
Reshared it.
Reshared or whatever. Somebody had a story today where they were doing some FBX stuff and kind of merging a character between different poses and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, no, shout out to Feeding Wolves. She's been going through it. I shared that one as well. That was cool. And then Logan's been doing the same thing. So shout out to him as well. And yeah, it's just cool seeing how fast people are picking it up and sharing this stuff on the fly.
Yeah. Yeah, and the chapters themselves, you can get a breakdown if you go to mograph.com/classes and go to this class and you click more info. You can go directly there. If you go to mograph.com/creating the unreal, you can go chapter by chapter if you want to find out more. And it goes through everything that you're going to learn. And this is a beginner course in that you don't have to know anything really about Unreal. It's like when you do like the Houdini course, for example, that we have out there, you have to have quite a bit of prior knowledge in 3D. With this, you do have to know a bit about 3D because you're going to, of course, talk about things having to do with 3D in general, not necessarily one specific program. But as far as Unreal goes, is there any prior? I don't think there's any prior knowledge you need to know, right?
No, I mean, if you have a basic understanding of 3D, I mean, all the same basics still apply once you jump into Unreal. So, like, we use a lot of these applications like Blender and Cinema is like feeder applications to Unreal. So, you know, if you know like a 3D application, then you should have no problem at all jumping into Unreal, at least being able to navigate and stuff like that.
Because you go through and you talk about just getting started, opening it for the first time, you know, the different versions of the engine and everything like that. And then you go through how to bring in some of these demo scenes, which is great because opening Unreal with just a blank scene is just kind of like, you know, what do I do now? But it's nice to have this, and you talk about the viewport and place actors, and then you get into things like the sequencer. And I don't think a lot of people really know what the sequencer is in general. If you want to explain that a little bit, it's really cool.
Yeah, I like to kind of explain it as having like an NLE all within Unreal. It's probably one of my favorite things that once I figured out how it works, I mean, it just opened up a wider range of doors because usually in Cinema, like, you know, if I have different scenes, I render out the scenes and then I will edit it in like Blackmagic Resolve or After Effects or whatnot. But with Unreal, it's like I can set up my different scenes and I can edit everything all within Unreal. And then, you know, you can still do color correcting in Unreal and add LUTs and things like that. So whatever you edit within Unreal, you can export it. And then you don't need like any other application afterwards if you don't really want to jump into it. Like you could get your final look all in Unreal, get all your edits done in Unreal with the sequencer, and you're off to go.
Yeah. And
those familiar with the take system too, like that was a big thing that struck me starting to work with sequencer is using spawnable objects. Like it functions both as an editor but also as a take system that you can use to like create your scenes specifically for each shot, which is really great too.
Yeah, I like the fact that you have that flexibility when you're working in like Cinema 4D and you're trying to do different scenes or any 3D for that matter. You have to take into account render time. And although it's getting faster and you've got things like Octane that really speed your renders up, you still have a minute, 2 minutes a frame, something like that on a giant project. And so if you're trying to do like cuts in post, you have maybe you build in like 1 or 2 seconds, if you're lucky, of padding on some of these shots, and then you kind of have to plan out the shots and say, okay, right here I'm going to do this, right here I'm going to do this. Maybe you have to render out some hardware passes or something like that to kind of get a feel for the edit, how it's going to go. And I love the fact that if you have something like this set up in Unreal, it feels just like you're inside of a nonlinear editor, and you can change the shots, switch it around, you know, just not worry about all of those frames because it's real time, and just go back and you're like, oh, I don't like that shot, I'm going to change this angle, and you just go hit play and play it back again. It's the first time I opened the sequencer, I was like, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things, like I'm really comfortable in using a camera in Cinema 4D. So even if I'm just gray boxing my scene out, I try to at least get like my camera animations and stuff done in Cinema. And the cool thing is like I went over this during SIGGRAPH, what was it, last month for the Maxon stream? But it's like I had like 6 or 7 cameras all set up in the one scene, and I just had them pointing at different areas of interest. And then I exported all those cameras out and then I made each one of their cameras their own sequence, and I just started editing them in like sequencer, and then I was able to come out with my final result there. And like that workflow, just having that flexibility there, I thought was really cool. And it, it's like I said, I come from a cinema background, so that's where I'm strongest at. Like I'm sure the camera in Unreal is great, but I'm just really good at the camera and cinema. So just being able to jump between the two and like use my core strengths along with Unreal, I mean, that flexibility there is, I mean, you can't ask for anything better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where it gets really fun too is if you start, you can time remap on top of your whole sequence. So when you see your entire scene just slow down and everything just obeys it, it's almost like magic, because you're not having to render things out a high frame rate or mess with things in post. You're just like seeing it live like that. And
you get those middle interpolated frames without any sort of stutter or anything.
There are exceptions with sprite-based animations and things like that, but even with sprites, it tries to kind of like interpolate.
Now, sprite-based animations, it would be what? Bringing in maybe an image sequence or something. Yeah. Right? So that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of the other things that you go over is like you get into lighting, and some of this I was generally familiar with. I've been trying to learn Unreal over the years. It seems like slowly, and static, stationary, and movable. You've got these dynamic lights that are like the real-time lights, and you got the baked stuff as well, and you kind of go through and you explain it. I love this analogy with the pool. The pool cue and the pool scene and everything. It makes sense. And
I tried to. I actually pulled that from, because when I came to that chapter, I'm like, how can I logically explain because I understand what it is between, like static and dynamic lighting and everything. And then you have the one that's mixed between them. But I know I see a lot of people online, they kind of get it misinterpreted. Like they think you have to bake everything out. And sometimes, especially if you have large scenes, that could take a really long time.
Yeah.
And I try to tell people like, no, you could do it dynamically and it's going to run in real time still, so I tried to break it down as logically as possible. And I guess it's coming across great because people are understanding it. But yeah, lighting is one of those things that it could get a little bit tricky in there when it's your first time jumping into Unreal. But, it just comes with experience as well. I'm sure Benji can attest to that. The more time you spend in there, the more your muscle memory just build up and you'll start making a natural progression in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great also that there's such a current tutorial, because you can look at a lot of tutorials on Unreal Lighting and you're actually going to get tutorials about sort of pre-ray tracing workflows, which are a lot more complicated, right? So what ray tracing did was it kind of simplified everything to where it feels more like a traditional 3D program, when before there's a lot more smoke and mirrors and trying to fake things to get things to look like there was GI and things like that.
Oh, so, do like those GI bakes on textures and stuff to give them that look. Yeah. So
that's a thing to call out. Just like, if you look at these current tutorials and don't necessarily get confused by older tutorials, because Unreal is advancing at such a quick rate that it's good to stay very current with the information that you're trying to get. So
basically, I know dynamic lights, they're going to take resources, right? So I'm guessing what you would want to do is you try and bake the stuff just is not going to move the best you can. Let all that stuff calculate ahead of time, and then just have the dynamic lights on the stuff that is going to move. You got somebody with a flashlight in their hand, obviously that's going to be dynamic. But
yeah, I mean, I just go dynamic all the way. I mean, I know my system's a little bit higher spec, but yeah, I've even used it on my laptop. I have a mobile 1070 in there, and I haven't really had any problems in there. And that's probably about 4 years old now. So,
and I guess that makes sense too, because you're not necessarily. It's not like you're making a video game. It's not like you're trying to tailor this for people's systems. Yeah. Like people who are going to have different types of systems with different types of video cards, and you're trying to optimize for everybody. This is for you because in the end you're just going to render it out, right? So whatever you can do.
So that's what I try to tell people.
There are cases definitely where you still want to kind of fake it, but we find ourselves, rather than baking lighting, we'll just be creative with like basically creating point lights and things like that fake GI rather than baking it in. You can be creative with like how the light falls in the scene, oftentimes, and avoid having to bake anything. And like you said, you know, even if you just like load everything up and you're looking at like several seconds a frame of render, it's still nothing, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you seen the screen space global GI that they added? I think it's still in beta, but I mean, doing GI now is just like that. Like it's really nothing anymore. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just calculating what you see in the screen, so it's pretty efficient.
And and that's the whole Unreal 5 that everybody's going nuts over. It's
you could do that now.
Yeah, you can get it now.
But is that the same concept with the geometry, right? As far as like what's coming out in 5, kind of, it's like screen space geometry. Am I describing that right? It's kind of like LOD, but it's not.
I mean, there's already a lot of that happening under the hood, and I think that's one of the things to really call out about Unreal is like in Octane and software like that, we're trying to throw everything we can into a scene and see how much we can get away with. But real-time engines have been doing this for a long time and trying to do it very efficiently. So there's a lot of like optimization already where it's like calling out things that you're not seeing, and there's levels of detail that happen automatically, and there's so many things happening under the hood that just make your life a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, back to the sequencer, the great thing is that you show how to load these scenes, and they've got these pre-made scenes that you can load up, and they have the sequencer, like the edit in there, which is great. So you've got this whole little cinematic that you can run through. You can change angles, mess with lighting, change the edit. You get into Mixamo and camera cuts, and of course the movie render queue. The material stuff, I really love the Quixel stuff, because I'm telling you, this is like, for me, let's see, let me go over and bring some of these up for Quixel. Like, just seeing this,
Mixer.
This was like my gateway drug for Quixel, because even though it was in Unreal, I'm like, wait a minute, I can be doing this in Cinema 4D right now. Why have I not had? I mean, it's not like I didn't know what Quixel was. It's just I hadn't really just had the time to sit and mess with it, and I realized, man, it's so easy, and this is free with Unreal. It's subscription if you're doing something like Cinema 4D, but Unreal, I guess, bought them, so you can get all of this stuff for free.
Yeah, 100%. Like I was a Quixel subscriber since day one, because I saw the stuff they were doing with Jungle Book a few years ago, and you know, they were hyping it up for a few years there. So once they put it out, like I do a lot of environmental stuff, so it only made sense. And since like they put it out to the public and where they're at now, I mean, just like Epic, they just keep like raising the bar like so fast. Like initially, you could pretty much only mix like your textures together, but now it's to the point to where they're almost taking on like Substance Painter, where we can bring in geometry and just procedurally create like whole new looking geometry in there. And it's not even with just their stuff. I mean, you could bring in your own 3D models and paint on top of it, and add decals, and you know, like really dig into the crevices and curvatures. So yeah, I mean, it's something that's definitely worth it in itself, just to play around with and see what you come up with.
That's something Matt told me about the other day. He started playing with that when we got the subscription. He's like, man, we can put all our models in here. We can update them. We can keep a library. We can do all of that. That's just awesome. And you have the chapter in here where you create a forest, and it takes kind of through the process. So, and
the forest one is one of my favorites, because like the foliage tool is probably my favorite thing in Unreal, where you could just kind of take like your plants, or not even plants, you could take any geometry and just like a paintbrush, just paint across the geometry that you want to have everything scatter on, and it happens instantly, which I've been screaming at Maxon to add for ages, because you know, like I'm just tired of using vertex painting and things of that nature in the cloner. I'm like, once you jump into Unreal and you just start painting in your grass or rocks or whatever, I'm like, it's like magic, and it's just so fast too. I mean, it's crazy.
And,
yeah, it's even better if you like paint down some grass and then you jump in with a character and run around in the grass a little bit. I love to do
there's
that.
something so fun about creating a world, especially if you're integrating VR into something like this. There's something so fun about creating a world and then just like fully jumping into it.
Yeah.
You know, and I've barely scraped the surface with that, but the first time that I ever even made some sort of scene in cinema, and then you put it in VR and you put the helmet on, and you know, realize that you do the scale thing, you know, you're making this world and you're kind of looking down on it, but then when you go inside of it, there's something so fun about creating a world, creating the unreal, if you will. And
have you tried in Unreal yet? Did you hook your Oculus up inside of Unreal?
I have experimented with that a little bit. You know, there's some wonkiness sometimes getting the controllers to work, but it's getting better. Like now I feel like I can jump in and there's a lot of pre-made setups to where you don't have to worry as much about it. I'm still learning a little bit about how you make things that are rigid or not rigid and what's movable, not movable, all that kind of stuff. But I've been messing with it.
It seemed to work better when I had the Vive than with the Oculus, but I mean the templates are pretty straightforward. So yeah, if you even just wanted to throw your headset on and just kind of walk around the world that you created, I mean it's as easy as that. Just using the template, kind of jumping in there. But yeah, that's always fun to do.
And see, then you don't even get into the Cinema 4D integration until Chapter 10, and that's what we're talking about. You learn all of this stuff leading up to this, and then you get into the integration. And you talk about how to set it up for importing and exporting in both pieces of software, so you can bring it in, and you get into keyframes, you get into FBX and Mixamo stuff. The fractures and dynamics are really cool. And again, this chapter right here, this is the Alembic and FBX files 10H here. This is the one that's the free lesson on the site. You can check that out. And then also the post-process effects are really cool too. It's amazing how that's kind of evolving as well. And then the everyday loop, that's a good one as far as like basically you set it up, you have these dynamics, like these balls kind of go around. Kind of reminds me of the marble thing, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
That Unreal did. And then of course we have the bonus projects here at the end with the logo, and we'll be adding on to that as you're doing more. So you know, even if
the
you
next
get through
one
the
should
course,
be coming. So the next one should be coming at Adobe Max. I'm still working on it, but like each Unreal Engine logo, I'm supposed to animate it using like a different theme set. So the first one was called Naturalistic, which had like that Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones type vibe to it. Then the next one was Geometric, where it kind of has like that pop style that's real popular right now, with just like basic colors and, you know, simple textures and things of that nature. And then the next one, I think I'm going to do the game eccentric one, where it's going to focus on making a logo animation that would be geared towards something you would see when the game pops up, which I'm gearing towards maybe like a Fall Guys type theme. Like I'm really liking the way Fall Guys look right now with the colors and things. So I'm trying to build out an obstacle course in cinema, and maybe I'll hit up EJ to get some characters off him and stuff. Go. But yeah, I think I'm going to do that one for the next one. And then I'm supposed to do one that's geared towards automotive, and that will probably be coming in November. So yeah, like there's a lot of automotive design people that use Unreal to do like showcases, and like even with the VR stuff, I've seen like Jaguar take you inside their electric car, and you could kind of test drive it and stuff. So a lot of really cool automotive stuff going. And then the last one, I think we're going to do something that's more related to ArcViz, so like architectural design and things of that nature. So yeah, 3 more coming out. So make sure you're always checking the bonus section. I'm supposed to knock them out like every 3 weeks, but you know, we'll see how that goes.
And some of that stuff as well is going to be in Brandon Clement's course that he's working on right now. We're going to have another course, hopefully. We're looking at like spring of next year. There's a lot of stuff in the works for that right now, and there's a lot of stuff there's things we're waiting on as well for that. But he's going to get into some automotive. He's going to get into like different styles, you know, architectural, all of that, kind of like what you're doing, and it'll be like it'll be more of the advanced. Like I already know Unreal Engine. Teach me more about this, like the sequencer combined with ray tracing, all that kind of stuff. It's gonna be an RTX class. Don't have a name for it yet. I thought RTX on would be a great name, but the Google foo on that will be awful.
Say AMD's card's coming out soon. The Navi one is supposed to have ray tracing, so yeah. I don't. I will hold off on that title and see what they. I think they're supposed to come with some heat, so we'll see.
That will be that'll be nice because then it will be available for both cards.
Yeah,
and that will be nice, and that always encourages great competition as well. So get those 3090 prices down a little bit.
Yeah. It seems like they were kind of waiting for the next consoles to come out because the PS5 and the Series X and Series S, they're both using AMD architecture inside there. So the CPU and GPU are both AMD. So it feels like they were waiting until those systems came out and then they're going to drop the cards. Maybe it was some type of agreement they had, but yeah, it seems like they're all dropping around the same time.
Yeah. And I want to go to some questions, I think. Ben's question, and if you have any questions right now, make sure you put them up in the chat, and we'll get to them here. Ben says, as a VFX artist, which one is better, Unity or Unreal? I think we might be a little biased, but
I mean, before I jumped into Unreal, I did Unity. Like I even took like their summer course a couple years ago that was like with a Unity instructor.
Right.
I mean, I've seen some amazing stuff out of Unity, but it just didn't feel right for me in my workflow and stuff. But especially after, I mean, yeah, I kind of tested to Benji. I saw you talking SIGGRAPH when you're talking about the Pro Max Awards stuff that you did for the Pro Max games and the Rocket League stuff. And then that's when they dropped the announcement with the Datasmith plugin as well. Right. So it's kind of like a perfect storm. It's like I'm at SIGGRAPH. They're announcing Datasmith. I'm seeing Benji's talk. He's going into all this stuff, how he's making iterations on the fly. So I went home, downloaded Unreal, tried it out, and I felt right at home. So it's just like, for me, it just felt like Unreal was kind of more natural for me. It was kind of weird because a lot of cinema artists, for some reason, they say like Unity feels more natural to them, but it felt like every time I would try to do something in Unity, I always had to go to the marketplace and try to buy something to compensate for what I'm trying to do. And it still wasn't kind of quite right. So yeah, I mean, it all depends on the artist, but I mean, I gear more towards Unreal, obviously, but yeah.
I feel like it was kind of this back and forth for a while, and I feel like Unreal this year has just accelerated in comparison. It felt like it was this kind of 50-50 thing, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm wrong, but
there's a lot of attention on Unity kind of around the time Oculus was coming out because they were paired together, and then people that were interested in VR were also like playing in Unity. But then I think kind of what you said is that there was like a big push there. Some people at Epic actually were working really hard to get the enterprise tools up and running, and a big push to integrate with a lot of different software. And once that started to happen, that's kind of what got our attention too, is like, there's all kinds of easier ways to do this now, and we did it more and more after that.
Yeah, because you guys used a pre-integration, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys were straight doing just FBX and Olympic exports and everything.
Yeah, ProMax, that piece was pre-integration, but it was, I mean, there were kinks, but it was already like such a good experience that we, basically decided that was going to be part of our pipeline going forward. And ever since then, it's just been more and more advancements, and every version that comes out, it's getting easier to use for people that aren't kind of used to that technical part.
So actually, Benji, go into detail a little bit about what you do for Capacity and what everybody does there as a whole, and what kind of company it is.
Yeah, we were originally a branding company that did a lot of sort of broadcast graphics. We did like a lot of work for NBC and NFL and a lot of the big networks. And even back in those days, we were really big into like gaming. We were always like playing games for fun and then working on the side. And then eventually it occurred to us that a lot of our skill set would also work kind of in the gaming business. So we kind of transitioned to where now 95% of our clients are actual gaming clients. And we do a lot of stuff like sort of white label, but we do a lot of sort of like marketing things, anything from trailers. We do a lot of esports packages, things like that, and various different web marketing needs as well. But for us, it's we've been always a really small team, and for us, it's about like finding work that's interesting and exciting, and kind of diving into that. And Unreal's been just a blast to like be able to do that and kind of like forge into new territory and have a new playground to play with, and we love it so far.
Do you do like, how much are you in Unreal? Are you in Unreal all the time, or are you kind of going back and forth and doing?
I'm in
like
Octane right now, actually on a pretty big project. And it's been interesting because I've done like several Unreal projects this year as well, and kind of jumped back into Octane. And there's part of me that was like, oh, like I know how to do everything, and I don't have to like, think about it too much. This is great. But then the more I got into it, like I started to really miss things that like I'd gotten used to without knowing it in Unreal. Like the sequencer is a huge one.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, wrestling with takes and layers and all that stuff again, and which are good systems, but the sequencer, like once you really understand it, is like such a more complete solution for a lot of us. And then also, besides the render quality things, like also the way materials are handled was a big thing for us. I don't know if you go over this in your course, Jonathan, but like creating master materials and how you set those up, and then their relationship with other materials.
Set up an instance and stuff.
Yeah. So
yeah,
dealing in a nutshell, like you have these source materials that have a lot of functions that are like the source for a lot of different instances, which can be applied to different things. And then when you need to change anything, it becomes so much easier because it's all automatically linked. It's like if you created this enormous node tree that everything was attached to, right? Which is so tedious to do manually, but it just is all kind of like a little more automated in Unreal. So we've been really enjoying that part as well.
I bet you're excited about Brigade coming from Otoy.
Yeah.
Then that should be very interesting to see, because on both sides of it, if you got Brigade as one of your kernels in Cinema 4D or whatever program you use, there's so much you can do real time there. And then to have something like that in Unreal, it's just going to look amazing as well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the stuff that they're doing with some of the particle stuff, like the what is it called? What's
Embergen.
Embergen and all of that.
Yeah.
Man, that's gonna be.
Yeah, Embergen's really exciting to see stuff like that happening, like real time too. Now we've done a lot of Turbulence FD and stuff like that too, and it works, but like there's always a little bit of a, you get to a certain point where you're trying to reach a certain quality bar, and then like the time it takes to do everything gets so slow that you just feel like bogged down by it. And the more you can get past those, the more you can just be creative and iterate all you want, which is great.
Yeah. And it's nice to know a little bit about this, even if you feel like you're not going to fully get into Unreal, even if you feel like you're going to stay in this other kind of like non-real-time motion graphics. If you're going to be in cinema, you're going to be using Octane, you're kind of going down that road. It's nice to know this stuff in case it comes up, in case you have to deal with a project that has to do with it. Matt and I, for example, have been working on graphics for Madden, and while we're not programmers and we're not in Unreal, we're creating video for the video game. It's still nice to know some of these things, because if something comes up, you just have a better understanding of how that works. And there's just so much video game stuff coming out, especially with COVID. It's just it's just video games everywhere. This interactive this and that, and the weird merging of these two industries. It's very good to know, even if you want to, even if you only do like an introductory course into Unreal, just to get that basic knowledge, you know. And I feel that's where I'm at. I only have the basic knowledge of Unreal, but I feel like I have a grasp on what it is, where it's going, what the technologies are, even if I don't know how to use them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've told people that you can never have too many skill sets in your drawer. And so, like, maybe a couple weeks ago, like, actually, David introduced somebody to me. They were looking for someone to build virtual sets inside of Unreal so that they could use it on their LED walls at the studio. And so it's like, I knew Unreal. I'd never done virtual set design before, but I've built 3D environments in Unreal. So, I mean, it was like no different than just like any other broadcast job I would do. So I built out the environment, sent it on to their stage crew that was at the production house. They loaded it up on the LED walls, and it's like, you know, I got a paycheck there from a skill set that I just recently acquired. And, you know, it didn't take me too much out of my comfort zone just because I knew 3D and I knew how everything worked. And so it's just, I knew enough Unreal to be able to make that job happen. So it's stuff like that, especially in COVID. I know a lot of people are hurting for work. So it's kind of like, maybe think outside the box and acquire some other type of jobs. Maybe there's no broadcast jobs, but there are other type of jobs out there that you could use these skill sets towards. So you can never have too many skills to, you know, in your drawer set. You just, whenever it calls upon it, you can say, hey, I could do that. And then, you know, there you go.
And even networking with those people too, networking with people who know that stuff, getting to know people who are into it. For, you know, example, you know, you get hit up because people know that that's what you do. And, you know, there might be circumstances where, you know, like maybe Ariev hits you up on a project or something, and maybe he's not going to do the Unreal portion of it, but maybe he's working on something else. It's really good to have those connections because of the way that this industry is going.
Yeah.
Kent says, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add, like, I think it's really cool that Jonathan's doing like an in-depth tutorial too, because for us the biggest thing has been trying to convince people, like, don't go to Unreal just because you want to render faster. It's like so much more than that. It's not just like real-time rendering. That's just like a thing that it does, but there's so many other layers to it. And if you go through this process of like seeing how it all works, you'll start having a lot of those like aha moments as you go along.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, when I first saw like your talk at SIGGRAPH, that was the very first thing I was like, oh, they're rendering this stuff in real time. But as you start getting into it more and more, it becomes much more than just the real time rendering. And that's the hardest part to try to convey to people, because of course, like, that's, you know, that's the icing on the cake that everybody sees. They go like, oh, I don't have to send out the render farms, or I don't have to have 9 GPUs at the house. It's all about real time. But it's much more than that. I mean, even the tools in there, like I went over the foliage tool. I mean, that thing was like, it's so hard for me to go back and do it the old way, just because I know once I bring it into Unreal, I could just start painting on all these different assets, and the way the material node works, it feels really natural. I mean, there's a lot more to it, like he was saying, than just real-time rendering. But yeah, I mean, it's about your getting your mindset correct too. Like, I had to start thinking like a game developer, and that's when I think some of this stuff started to make more sense. And as I'm working through it, I'm like, oh, this is cool that I could do this in here that I couldn't do in these other applications there. And just kind of figuring out what the strength is of each application, because there still is some stuff I like in Cinema more than Unreal. So it's like, how do I combine these two, you know, powerful platforms together to get the end result that I need?
Yeah.
Where is it? I have a question. Kent says, well, first of all, he says, I've been promoting the course to everyone. Thank you very much, Kent. And the question is, any insight as to the Maxon Epic Mega Grant? Will future integrations be only with the later versions of Cinema 4D? Will older versions benefit as well? I don't know the answer to that. I don't.
Yeah, I have no idea. I know Kevin's here. I say, Maxon, I want my 5%. Yeah, that's good. But no, that was cool that they announced that during SIGGRAPH. I mean, that just means that there's going to be better integration. Hopefully, there. I mean, I know the systems are totally different, but one of the big questions I get a lot is, I have my scene built with Redshift. How can I bring that into Unreal? And I try to tell people, like, you know, just getting my understanding of how everything works, I usually gray box my stuff in Cinema, and then when I bring it into Unreal, I do all my texturing and everything in there. So I kind of use like basic solid colors in Cinema. Like if I know I have a ground plane, I'll just use like a solid brown material. And then once I come into Unreal, it's like, okay, I know this is what I wanted to represent my ground. And then I'll start doing my texturing in there because it looks a lot better that way as well. But a lot of people they just want the quick and now. They just want to export, bring it into Unreal, and then start, doing what they're going to do. So hopefully this brings tighter integration with that. I know you can do stuff with Redshift, like bake your materials and bring it over, but that still gets a little bit messy in that regard. Like you can't really move your geometry or anything like that. And then playing with Octane, I know you can export like your OB, or what is it called, ORBX files out of Cinema.
Orbex,
and bring those, your Orbex, and then you could bring it into, like, they actually have Octane for Unreal as well, which I was trying to do some experimenting with. It's not 100% there, but I mean that's that's as close as like full integration from a third-party renderer to Unreal that you're going to get. And I know they've been working hard on it, and they're still not 100% there. So hopefully this mega grant just gives Maxon a kick in the butt to really try to drive those things home.
Yeah. Another thing to mention on that note is, if you're using tools like Quixel or Substance, if you use that as sort of the basis for your texturing, you can send out both to Redshift and to Unreal the same passes and sort of use that as your base point and then kind of go either way that you want to. We were kind of experimenting with that early on, and we were happily, surprised that on recent projects too, that like we don't have to commit to one render or the other because the cameras match. So you can do a shot in Cinema, then jump out to a shot in Unreal, and it's not like too big of an issue. So
the what is it called, the plugin manager thing? What are the plugin integrations called in Unreal?
Datasmith.
The Datasmith.
The Datasmith.
Yeah. It sounds like that's going to be something that's probably a big deal when it comes to Cinema 4D and Unreal with that mega grant. It seems like that'll be really nice, being able to go back and forth. And when you're somebody who's used to a particular render engine or a certain way of doing things, sometimes it's really hard to go back and forth, and sometimes it would just make it easier. Like, say you built something in Redshift in Cinema 4D and you had everything set the way you wanted it, you wanted to move over there. Even if you have to change stuff, at least you have a starting point when you get over there, if it integrates really well. So you can say, okay, well, this isn't exactly what I want it to look like in real time, but I can change these aspects. And sometimes it's easier to do that than have a blank slate and be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what node to touch here or what thing to look at. So hopefully we'll see some.
That's another reason to just go back to the statement too of like, don't just see Unreal as your renderer, see it as like a big part of your toolkit that you're using, and then that way you're not trying to build everything in Cinema and then pipe it over to render it. You're building from the ground up with that in mind.
Yes.
Yeah, the analogy that I came up with that I like using is, think of Unreal is like your main stage. So say like you're at a concert or something. So like Unreal is like the main event, that's your main stage. And then all your actors and everything, like your casting agent, is Cinema 4D. So you're building all your characters up in Cinema. You're getting all your assets ready to pipe over to the main stage. And so don't think of it as, I'm just going to build this whole scene in Cinema, shoot it over, and be good to go. It's kind of like the way game developers think is like, maybe you have somebody that's building props, or you have somebody that's building the stage, and then they're sending those items off to the game engine. I guess you would call them, I don't know what you would call them, I guess the Unreal people or whatnot. So it's like the people that are mainly working on Unreal, they're taking all these different assets from artists at their studio, and those artists might even be working in different applications like Blender, Maya, Cinema. So they're all just casting agents, and they're picking up the actors to send off to the main stage. And then it's like Unreal is like your final gathering place, and that's where the main show happens at.
Yep.
Yeah, with I think it was Unity. Joshua Michi was actually working on a long time ago jumping into that, and we saw his presentation. This was years ago. This is the first time I met him at NAB, I believe, and he was talking about his workflow in that he divides it up when he's in Cinema 4D, and there's a great Cineversity plugin where it will take every like root null that you have in Cinema 4D and export that as an FBX, and it's a great workflow doing something like that. If you wanted to integrate it into something you were doing on Unreal, to where you could say, okay, here is a null that has like your basic. I think this is my analogy before. Let's say like it's a world that you're working on, and you got one null that's the streets, and one null that's the buildings, and one null that's like cars or something like that. It will export those separately, and again, it's that whole way of thinking like, okay, these are separate sections to deal with. You're not going to bring in this whole scene because that's going to be ridiculous to try and update and say, okay, I want to take all this geometry and update this. You really break it down into those sections. That way, if someone's like, okay, well, we have to change all the houses in the scene, you can do that, bring them, export them back out, and then all the other stuff you don't have to worry about dealing with. It's already there. It's a lot more manageable that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than if you're working with like RealFlow, how you have to send like your Olympic files over to Cinema, or even if you're using like Houdini for like your destruction or simulations and things, and then you have to export those out of Houdini to your application, like if you want to use Cinema. So it's the same concept there, except for you're going from Cinema to Unreal. So that's just the way you have to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm looking through here to see if we have any other questions here.
Yeah, I say WASD navigation. Yeah, that is pretty cool.
That's jazz.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I think technically there might be WASD navigation in Cinema. There's a little feature where you can do like walkthrough stuff, and it will like bring you down to the floor. Yeah. I don't remember where it is. I think they moved around where it is in there, but
that was more for like archers, right? Let's call for the unification of all navigation across 3D platforms.
Oh man, tell me about it. I really like Cinema 4D's navigation. Honestly, I prefer it. I don't
but
like.
Nobody else uses it.
Yeah, it's true. You have a lot of things that are default in like Houdini and Maya and Unreal that are they're all the same. But I really do like Cinema 4D's navigation. I'm so used to it now. Sometimes I either have to force myself to use the other navigation, or if it's a program where you can change it, I'll change it to Cinema 4D, just because that's where my muscle memory lies.
Yeah. So I used to change it, but then I don't know. I just kind of got used to it because it seemed like every application still has like the little kinks in there, like. If I'm using World Creator, it's different than Cinema and different from Unreal. So it's kind of like, I think once you just work with these programs enough, you just, like you said, it's muscle memory. You'll just, as soon as you jump in Unreal, it just switches like, oh, okay, everything's inverted, but you're not actually thinking about it. It's just the way that it works. Or if I'm in World Creator, it's like, oh, okay, this is how I navigate here. So yeah, it just becomes a thing of working with the programs.
Yeah, like Stellar says here in the chat, every program changes the direction of X, Y, and Z. You've got backwards and upside down and all that. What is it? Unreal is what's the default? The way the axes point in Unreal is
it Y?
Z is up or something. I can't remember.
Z is up.
Yeah.
Which I never understood.
For a loop.
Because X and Y in a regular graph, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know why Z would be up, but whatever.
Unreal developers like to lie down on the ground. That's why.
That's what it is. They're on the ground. They have their screens on the ceiling. That's
Because they're working so hard.
Yeah, they have to work from bed because they just are working around the clock. So they're Stellar also says, I just found out the other day you can navigate with Alt instead of the 1, 2, 3 keys. Yeah, that's actually something I've been doing in Cinema. I zoom. It's weird because you can do zoom, move, and what's the third one? And rotate with the 1, 2, and 3 keys. but I actually only use one for the move. I hold one and I move, and I don't remember which way it goes with 2 and 3, but I rotate with Alt and then I zoom with the scroller on the mouse. So you have a lot of options there. Yeah. And I actually like that. I find myself in other programs holding one. I really like holding one to move, and I don't know. For me, it feels better than having to press the middle key on the mouse to move. But that's just me. Yeah. You know.
Oh. Yeah, I think I've just become accustomed to the middle mouse button, but yeah, just the WSD inside of Unreal I'm a gamer anyway, so that just kind of felt really natural moving around.
That goes pretty easy. And going back to how you're saying Unreal is fairly approachable, even if you don't know 3D, like if you've played games before, you already kind of know how to navigate in there, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kent says he thinks that they removed some of the walkthrough functions in R23. Maybe they did. I don't know. I don't know who was using the walkthrough functions. They're a cool thing, but I don't know anybody who is using them. So.
Well, it was only for Archviz stuff, I thought. Like, wasn't it under like an Archviz category or something?
Yeah, maybe a special layout or something like that. Yeah. Do you have any other questions? Any other Unreal questions? Maybe even as far as VR or virtual production. A lot of people getting into virtual production, and a lot of people hitting me up, asking me questions about virtual production that I can't answer, but I'm trying.
Yeah, I think it's just because it's a hot thing right now. Everybody watched the Mandalorian stuff on Disney Plus, and I've been getting hit up about it a lot, and there seems to be a lot of confusion as to what it is. Like, I even had a client hit me up saying, yeah, we can't shoot any actors or anything, and we can't get a sound stage, but we hear that we could do it all by virtual production. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, that's pretty much just a full CG production at that point. But it's the hot word going around right now. So
exactly.
I think
somebody hit me up the other day, and they're like, "Oh, I know somebody who's wanting to do virtual production on this." And then when it comes down to it, all they really need is to shoot in front of a green screen and have a VFX supervisor. There's nothing even that you need Unreal for. It's just a regular VFX shoot. It's like there's nothing having to do with Unreal in this. But there have been some people that have hit me up about it, and I especially people who I know that were already in the concert industry, and they were doing LED and LED tech, and they were doing live shows, and now that concerts and things aren't really happening, they're moving into that industry, and they're hitting me up. They're like, do you know anybody that knows how to calibrate LED walls when it comes to Unreal, or do color correction, or write custom plugins? And I'm trying really hard to find those people for my friends, but
I have a few guys on my Discord that do that stuff. So I send them over to my Discord, and those guys are always talking it up. So there are guys out there looking to help.
I was going to say too, there's an interesting way that virtual production is kind of feeding into other types of broadcasting as well, because you have what virtual production brings, like you said, is like calibrating for multiple screens using N-Display and NVIDIA to say, like, now all these screens are actually seeing the same scene, and what can you do with that if you have that connection and it's all synced together? And then what can you do with that if you actually sync that to the camera and you use the screens as a set extension, So there's things that they're doing in virtual production that will influence the actual regular set building as well, and it's starting to bleed across, and a lot of that tech is pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah, the people that have been in the live industry, I think, are really going to be able to take advantage of this if they know, at least some of the inner workings of it. I think right now, those people that are trying to move across from the live concert jobs and things like that over, I think are going to have quite an advantage if they get on this Unreal stuff, especially when it comes to the camera stuff. Doing LED walls is going to be pretty much the same if you're an LED tech. Now, setting them up and calibrating them and doing all the Unreal integration is a completely different thing. But I think something that also would be advantageous to learn is if you're already into live cameras and live data and things like that is learning about how you can integrate those cameras with Unreal in order for them to be able to see a camera and its position data and all of that. I've been following Matt Workman on Facebook, and there's a lot of great resources in there. Do you two of you know some other good resources when it comes to virtual production to start learning?
I mean, what Matt Workman's doing, I think, is like a great perspective, because he's basically like approaching it from like, if you didn't have all these high-end tools, like how would you do it? And so he's taking like Vive trackers and things like that and making it work like that.
Yeah.
And a few years ago that was impossible. It basically, you know, we were messing with it back then, and you know, there weren't the tools and support for it. It was just basically built for streamers. But now it's expanding and getting better, and he's also pushing things forward as well. So I think that's like, to me, one of the best resources right now. But Jonathan?
Yeah, no, I would say too, the stuff Matt's been putting out, then he has his Facebook group as well. And then yeah, I've been looking at the other stuff. Like I do know a lot of performers, and like, I don't know if you saw the stuff that Deadmau5 did a few weeks ago, where he did like the virtual concert pilot, where he actually got an Xan suit, piped it into Unreal so that he could DJ. Like, he created like this whole environment himself using Cinema and Unreal. And it was just a test pilot, so there were no actual like people in there at the time. I think his end game is he wants to actually have people be able to be in like the venue, kind of like Fortnite or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But since quarantine, I mean, he's just been at his house just like knocking his Unreal stuff out. And he did a pilot the other night, and he threw on the Xan suit. He made his own Deadmau5 avatar. And so he's performing live in Unreal, but streaming it out online. So people are still able to buy tickets, and he was able to control the like, he has several cameras in interesting place around his venue and stuff. And then he also had like a chat screen behind him. So if he hit like the chat button, then up on this fake LED wall behind him, like all the chat streams would come through and stuff. But it's just like, I look at that stuff as just being like very innovative, because, you know, all the concerts were canceled. So it's like, how can he still perform for all the people that still want to see him perform? But he could also take it to the next level, because this is essentially just, you know, like a fake world. So it becomes even more interesting in the type of stuff he could do. And I think that stuff right there is really cool. Just, you know, throwing on the mocap suit, performing live up on your own stage, and be able to control your entire environment. I mean, that stuff is crazy right there. That's what I'm really looking into. Like, I just got the Rococo suit, so I've been experimenting with that type of stuff as well. But just anything innovative and tech related, I'm just a tech geek at heart. So like, that stuff really gets me going. I'm just like, oh, we could do that. And so it's like,
that's the thing about Joel too. He's creating all of that stuff, and it's like, if you were an artist where you were used to people working for you, you know, you would hire your own production manager and kind of all that stuff. And if you wanted to do something like he's doing right now with his own virtual concerts, you'd have to pay people to do it, you know? And because he's so big into all of that stuff and loves to geek out on it and experiment with it and do it all himself, there's really no overhead on that, except if you're buying gear, but I'm sure that's not an issue for him. And
I get sponsored too.
Yeah, you get sponsored and all of that, and he gets to just experiment with it. If he wants to change it, he doesn't have to hire somebody to change it or try something. He just does it himself, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's really innovative.
So, I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say that stuff is really cool. And then the virtual influencer stuff I found really interesting. Like, you have these kids that are essentially taking their iPhone and they're piping their facial capture into Unreal, and then they're streaming that on like their Twitch streams or whatever they're doing, TikTok or whatever. So it's like they have their virtual avatar that can interact with people in real time, and is pulling in their facial movements. And, you know, if they have maybe like a leap motion or something, they can still get a little bit of body animation in there. But there's been some innovative stuff I've been seeing in like the virtual influencer space as well. Just people really picking up Unreal because it's free, experiment. And then I even saw, I think there was I can't think of her name. She was out of South Korea, but she got like a big like record deal. Like she was just is like a virtual performer. She would do like karaoke of like covers of other people's song,
Mm-hmm.
but she built like her own stage and she would perform live and everything. And it caught on like real big out there in South Korea. And I'm just like, wow. When you saw the people that were behind it, it was just like two guys that were just, you know, having fun online. But
Mm-hmm.
that stuff is kind of crazy as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not to take it away from the live stuff, but it was just making me think when Jonathan was saying like in these sort of times, I think it's worth noting too, like the sort of impact of having to, for so many people to have to work from home, you know, be their own kind of like workers. And for us, you know, we were used to being a team and having like a whole render and you know, maybe you can't do like the highest end settings for everything, but it's really scalable. So anybody on their home computer can work creatively without too much hassle. And then for another, there's built-in tools like version control, which I don't know if you talk about in the tutorial series at all, but like using something like Perforce, you can work really well as a team remotely. So you're basically, you have your master Unreal scene and everything syncs automatically. You just click sync and then it sends it to
Mm-hmm.
everybody else. They just accept the changes and
Nice.
they're working away and they sort of check things out and check them back in. And it's actually much more efficient than sort of like having to like manually figure out like, oh, what did you change in that file, and doing that whole song and dance, which we've gotten really used to that capability as well.
Yeah. Any other questions before we take off and maybe play a little Halo? We'll wait a second here in the chat, see if there's any other questions about that. And in the meantime, though, again, I wanted to push everybody's site. Jonathan, you've got winbushimmersive.com, but your YouTube channel has tons of great stuff on it. What's your URL for that?
Yeah, it's just youtube.com/Jonathan Winbush, and then all social media, Instagram, Twitter, etc. is all /Jonathan Winbush. And then yeah, that's mostly where I'm most active, is on there on YouTube and everything. So yeah, just reach out, and hopefully the tutorials and the series and everything is really helping people out there. I mean, it's cool just seeing how everybody's just been kind of taking the stuff that I'm throwing out there and just kind of receiving it. So
cool.
Yeah.
And Benji, now you're not as big on the social, right? But
yeah, I'm really not. But and capacity as a whole is kind of like sometimes flies under the radar a little bit. But we actually are in the middle of a bit of a rebrand right now. We went from TV to GG because of the gaming industry. So right now our site just is kind of bare bones, but it shows some of the new branding stuff we've been figuring out, which is pretty cool. And there's a link to our YouTube channel on there, which has some of the work as well, and Vimeo as well, which has more of the work that we've been doing. So
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And again, if anybody else wants to check it out, if you go to mograph.com/classes, you can see our classes there. And if you go to mograph.com/creating the Unreal, you can get all the information. You can watch the promos. You can, go get a breakdown of all the chapters. You can find out a little bit more information about Winbush and watch the full-length sample. You'll actually be able to watch the replay here of this. I could hit play and I could watch us. We could create like an infinite loop of ourselves. And yeah, so check that out. It's $247. And again, Jonathan, thank you so much for all the hard work in getting this out there, and doing that in between everything else you've been doing. You've been blowing up on all the platforms, it seems like, lately. Trying to.
You can thank COVID.
Yeah, and work with all the
cabin fever
between the kids going to school, remote learning, and all that other kind of stuff, And,
yeah.
So
But
Cool.
yeah, everybody pick up the course. We're trying to go platinum on this one, so
There you
a
go.
million copies. So
There you go.
we need 1 million people interested in Unreal to
That's
get up
fine
on
with
it.
me.
So
I'm fine with that.
yeah.
Cool. Thanks a lot, and thanks for joining us, Benji, and hanging out with us and geeking out a little bit. And
It was fun.
again, if anybody has any questions after the fact, if you're not watching this live, you can always send them info@mograph.com. If you want to check out what we're doing, we have a weekly podcast. Like if you're just showing up and you're here from a different channel and you're checking it out, we have a weekly podcast about motion graphics, and we tend to try and put out tutorials as best we can. And we love to geek out about basically everything motion graphics related. So join us on Mondays at 12 noon Central. We're here. Make sure you mash that subscribe button or whatever they say, whatever the kids are saying these days. And,
Yeah, I forget. My daughter gets on me. She was like, "Why do you always say that?" I'm like, "I don't know." I think what did I say? Give me a subscribe and a big thumbs up or something like that. No, I don't know. I guess it's corny now, but
right. My daughter was excited because she's got like a YouTube channel, and she's doing. I think your daughter's doing what is it called? What is it called?
Gotcha Life.
Gotcha Life stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So she did some sort of thing where she was tracing and drawing, and it was only like 20-30 seconds or something, but it blew up. She got like 2,000 hits. She was so excited about that yesterday. Wow. It just keeps going up, and so yeah. But you know, I'm the nerdy dad, you know, cheesy dad.
You'll be paying her for mentions pretty soon.
Right.
I see.
Exactly. So
have to put her as a guest spot on your podcast.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna get out of here. You can rate us on iTunes. You know, check us out on there. Again, subscribe to us on the platforms, to Mograph and to Windbush and Capacity, and check out their videos. And we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Mograph.com. Check us out on all the things. And again, send us your questions, and we will, you know, try and get back to you or even answer them on the podcast when it comes up. You know, if you have ideas, questions, comments, all that kind of stuff, hit us up.
Yeah, I would say big shout out to Maxon as well. I mean, they've been super, super supportive. Like, this is a whole nother platform, and they kind of just been embracing it with open arms. Like, I mean, all the talks that they've had me a part of, I mean, they have no problem with me showing, you know, like the stuff that Unreal's doing. So, yeah, big shout out to the guy. It's really cool that they're embracing other platforms and just trying to show how cinema can, you know, adapt and always stay relevant with whatever's going on out there.
Yeah. And you're going to be presenting, is that right? I think I saw you on their website today.
Yes. So as soon as I get done with all this clients, I have to get past all this client stuff first before I can jump onto the Unreal project, which, I think it's for, Adobe Max, which is coming up quick. So
last week of October.
A lot of sleepless nights here in the future, it looks like.
Oh, man.
It'll be worth it, though. All right, cool. Well, thanks again. We're going to get out of here, and we will catch you on the next stream. Have a good night, everybody.
Take care.
Good night.